Bush pour ANC Weekend, ici interen we exposing the pitfallai ti wig for the oval office que reside. The tributo formé, préside George H.W. The 40, Neste, préside war membre Barack Obama, The 44 th, à humble servant. Honorable. Gracieux and the swears war Bill Clinton usain près the film diet processor. Ou spique Paul D. Rue sans commium des scribes Bush agriini characté, leading with decency and integrity. George H.W. Bush, 40, Neste president of the United States, dit à 94 on Monday, Bush we return to Washington. We instate à the Capitol until Wednesday en, à tradition de montre un we étant the formé, procès funéral à Washington National Cathedral. I.S. on clear était un we de l'IVA le J. Inzit, préside armi sur Eno, libitaire accomplissement boubi à terre tenure c'est à sitting, préside andinskaz, the contraste à pire stark. Transimé hour of the peril of bank comparato à belevé processor. The brash, outil des présidents of transparaint the Bush family. On s'atturdait, présent Buches son jugement, commence en d'un flappable leadership, et les formés, présides fiercely competitive spirit. Préside Bush à l'ouafona weto 16 barrigué, troncé, ichouan onze bas beldiam, anden politique. Buchois America est l'histoire euro-préside, les fois de fineb servicing congress, the state department, the CIA and finalise et tous. Bornetto, elite family, ifate a senator from Connecticut, a swag up the moral custom of Washington from Mayonnage. Prichet compromise, modesty and respect, if no reverence, for Washington s institution and dev, et sommet à arcane policy making process. Ainsi in the sense that you believe in public service and government, Sir Richard Alas, au servait in the bûcher tous. Camto improve. Didn't come to Washington to disrupt. Tasso Estimin office, bi contrast, avant de finir avoir, en virtuel yell of the Normand institution tabuchel dire, spécialisé CIA. Trimontago, Mushoff officiel Washington, Menuse préside, Gatre à Washington National Cathedral for the funeral of St. Tal sermoni sul bratem qu'est les fans belief in America à robuste, moraland engagé fort son the global stage. John K. Harari. Ultimately, he also served a repudiation of his politic and worldview. Tzitzimerun, many expect something similar, if no kita over. Buches les fans présidentiels quand deux, à remain d'état à le 5e go et profondly abnormal, c'est Eliocan, au servait à seigneur officiel in George W. Buches State Department. The great danger of the Trump presidency is the normalisation of character and behavior will have absolute abomination to i processor. The difference titimit à Washington i morning no li evetre and formé congressman. Nu a member of the most exclusive club in American democracy. Most presidential funeral have provided opportunity for president past and to stress their share sense of patriotism, mission and purpose. il est impossible to be in si jambon et to feeling, a spécial bon with the upload Afghan before, Clinton say in 1994 following the edit of Richard M. Nixon, in many way represented Clinton as polar opposite. From a darkened it was just to rafte Nix, as it, Clinton tank as a formé, proceed for Wisconsin. A Gerald Ford's funeral en 2007. Your team political rival, Jimmy Carter, raconte peu intense personnel friandip tabuntem tojeté. In the immediate aftermath of Bush's death, much of the coverage touchait, on ébranlé président Clinton and Obama. Clinton raconte the gracieux and modeste nota Bush l'FMU pont de parting the it was in 1992 in, appears for the Washington Post publié Saturday. Bush sauva le fils noto me révélé the irafo I am rooting more for you, Bush Rita. Bill Clinton. George H.W. Clinton recalitaire friandzip, forgé during relief mission in Indonesia and New Orleans following Hurricane Katrina. Ensuring every opportunity he had to learn and language him, Clinton wrote. He just loved him. 3 days before Bush's death, Obama made the former president au minust and kindly already, a very warm friendship in the war of spokesman for Bush. He is to en vision even sitting in a room with Clinton, au mieux à attaquer à corrupt abusé à foi menant hypocrite Obama. Au mieux la bléba, Orsic, qui, the two Democrats have been just a critical of Trump, branding him a trito américain démocratie. Bush a ben similarly strané. S relations y. George W. For Trump, the funeral and the presence of fellow commander-in-chief to jeté en close proximity could serve to isolation. The LD Bush's presidency was marked by so bitterly parties, moment. I presidential campaign was accused of race betting in 1988, y attaqué Michael Dukakis. Bush's Democratic rival, for providing a weekend furlough et Horton, au rappel à Wacom, il free from jail. On y dit B, liatoité, Bush's campaign manager, apologisé for the head. The hearing surrounding Bush's nomination of Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court Procedure Many of America SPT David. Thursday, Bush remember mostly for immoderacy and we gestures across the edge. He compromise with the Democrat, on a modest taxic helper in the federal budget deficit even, a cause popularity to plume and LPG to a more radical Republican Party. Again the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union with as to a steadfast calm. A scale was un témoin et l'était, Bush le reporter. I am just no, emotional, of Guy. M'a buzzé la Suisse. President was un té despisabe, a biche un coff the American public. Some of them have to do with the era in which Bush governed. Euros up through the Republican Party, a team of both party orbit, consisting of liberal and conservative wing. Before America sortait en selve into wearing idéologie quelqu'un. So mo fibre acceptant soit traçable to style of governance. Oiseux épitome of préparation, procès and du diligence, c'est petit fivé, au survey in the Clinton and George W. Believe in the importance of establishment, expertise. And Mofiwa a product of Bushesbr of politique. Bush administration. Raisonnable, moderate prosople dont et incitation, AAC. À l'ofters très particulier problème fort Trundino attend Barbara Buches funeral en april, et choix attendre bifirs la 10 milléniatre. Barbara and George Buches Love Story remembra et funeral Buches de Zirto includre a i funeral suggest à the president wa i final sant of Tobe à Bouze, cura cup of the Oval Office. Takul Bretelordea, amom, en zeutre un président 600 overzado juste à bout every aspect of Amric lif, burate à bout ilif. The country yabit exhauste and the last thing prosoplo orni I for the next fedet to add to the exhaustion, AAC, I presidency and the country. Best thing for and the country I for prosoplo to set the most normal day of the presidency.